If you build it, will they come? I'm Michael Smerconish in Philadelphia. With regard to tariffs, our biggest problem isn't a lack of manufacturing jobs. It's finding people to fill them. On Wednesday, President Trump brought relief to the frenzied markets when he declared a pause for 90 days, leaving in place a 10% tariff on most nations, plus a 25% tariff for cars, steel, and aluminum, and a 125% tariff on China. The Dow soared on the news, gaining a record 2,962 points in one day. But in the middle of the cheering, some saw a mixed message from the White House. What was the primary purpose of these tariffs? Was it to return manufacturing jobs to the United States or to raise revenue? The president has often said that the U.S. is getting $2 billion a day in tariff revenue, although nobody seems sure exactly where that number is coming from. But maybe he emphasized the profits because he knows the first justification, the return of manufacturing jobs, doesn't really hold water. Not because we haven't lost jobs in that sector, we have, but because we can't fill them, even if they do return. Alicia Finley is a Wall Street Journal editorial board member who wrote this week about a dirty little secret regarding the employment picture. Our status is not best described by an unemployment rate of 4%. Instead, it's all about our labor force participation rate. Writing under the headline of "A Good Man for U.S. Manufacturing is Hard to Find," she noted that good job openings are available, but the labor force participation rate among working-age men is 5 percentage points lower than in the 80s, accounting for about 3.5 million fewer men between 25 and 54 in the workforce and 1.3 million between the ages of 25 and 34. Or said more simply, fewer men are willing or able to work. It seems strange considering the median wage of recent college graduates with a sociology degree is about $45,000, while working on an auto assembly line gets you an average of $100,000. But a lot of men today want to work in an office, or maybe at home, or maybe nowhere at all. This observation is borne out in other data. This week on my SiriusXM radio program, I hosted William Reinsch from the Center for Strategic and International Studies, because he co-authored a paper published in late 2024 under this headline, "Immigration Policy Solutions to Shortages in Critical Sectors of the U.S. Economy." It mostly had to do with how critical sectors of the U.S. economy are badly understaffed, a situation that will become worse without orderly immigration. That's because we're aging as a society, we're living longer as well, and our birth rates are not keeping up. Yes, in 2024, we had an unemployment rate of about 4%, but there were about 8 million open jobs in the U.S. last August, meaning there were almost 6 million more jobs than there were people collecting unemployment. And no surprise if you've been paying attention, the tightness in the labor market is most pronounced for physically demanding jobs that require in-person presence. Bottom line, even if we're being treated unfairly by our trade partners, we've got a more deep-seated problem here at home with our masculine workforce. Or as Alicia Finley wrote, the decline in work among young men is a far bigger problem for the nation's economic and cultural vitality than the decline in manufacturing jobs. It can't and won't be solved with tariffs. This is the conversation, I think, that we need to be having. Which brings us to our poll question today at Smerconish.com. If the United States brings back manufacturing, will Americans be willing and able to fill all the new jobs? In other words, if we build it, will they come? Because it doesn't matter how many factories you have if men don't show up. And make no mistake, this doesn't just affect our men, it affects our women, it affects everyone. Here's another recent headline that caught my eye. Women are giving up on marriage. Rachel Wolf wrote this, also coincidentally in the Wall Street Journal. Among the takeaways, American women have never been this resigned to staying single. They are responding to major demographic shifts, including huge and growing gender gaps in economic and educational attainment, political affiliation, and beliefs about what a family should look like. This story reported that a 2022 Pew Research survey of single adults showed only 35% of single women are looking for romance, compared to 50% of single men. And you're saying, wait a minute, the guys are the ones who are seeking romance? Yeah. So I tracked down Kim Parker, director of social trends research at Pew, and I asked her on radio what's going on. She told me that women are outperforming men in education and professional attainment, It's often said that women marry up, but right now it's hard for a lot of them to even marry sideways. So when our young men struggle, so too do our young women, which should all sound familiar to regular viewers of this program because it's a subject I've discussed repeatedly with guests, most notably Professor Scott Galloway, Prof. G, the NYU professor and host of a podcast of the same name. And as Scott has explained it here, men don't comb their hair. They don't put on a suit. They don't go to work automatically. They need motivation. They need guardrails. And one of the primary motivators, Scott has said, is sex and companionship. And yet, as Professor Galloway notes, 1 in 3 American men under 30 hasn't had sex in the last year. This is not merely about sexual frustration. This speaks to the formation and functioning of the middle class, ultimately, because a household that mixes the risk-taking of a male and the thoughtfulness of a female works well. So if young men and women are having trouble finding each other, that's tragic on a personal level, but also on a social and economic level. And Galloway notes that today young people are 24% less wealthy than they were 40 years ago, while 70-year-olds, the young people from 40 years ago, they're 72% wealthier. 40 years ago, the average age of a home buyer was 36. Today, it's 54. Are young people opting out of a lifestyle, or is it that they can't afford it? So it's understandable that tariffs are in the headlines, with the president radically changing U.S. policy and the stock market causing whiplash, but there's something else going on beneath the headlines that is far more fundamental.